A dream was born in Arusha over half a century ago. A vision that transcended borders, ethnicities, and colonial legacies. A vision of unity from the Indian Ocean to the Congo rainforests. A United States of East Africa. Today, from Mombasa to Kigali, from Kampala to Juba, 8 nations share a single dream, the East African community. But this path hasn't been smooth. It's been shaped by visionaries, dictators, economic triumphs, bitter collapses, and now, a comeback few believed possible. From colonial railway hubs to high-speed trains, from the dreams of the founding fathers to the youth-building startups across borders, this is the definitive story of the EAC, its past, pain, progress, and future. Welcome to a journey through 60 years of unity against the odds. The idea of a united East Africa didn't start with independence. It began with the British Empire. In the early 1900s, the British carved out British East Africa, linking Kenya, Uganda, and Tanganyika, not for unity, but for control. They needed to export tea, coffee, cotton, and minerals. And to do that efficiently, they built railways, harbors, and postal routes that connected the region long before its people dreamed of one identity. The Uganda Railway, completed in 1901, became the spine of East Africa, running from Mombasa to Kampala. It wasn't just steel and sleepers. It was the first physical thread stitching the region together. By 1927, the East African High Commission was formed. Shared institutions managed the railways, postal services, and even courts. There was even an East African shilling, used across all 3 colonies. But remember, this unity served the empire, not the Africans. Independence swept across East Africa between 1961 and 1963. One by one, colonies became nations. But 3 leaders saw a bigger prize, not just sovereignty, but unity. Meet the founding fathers. First, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania. The philosopher-teacher who believed Africa must unite or perish. He envisioned a socialist federation where the people, not borders, mattered. Second, Milton Obote of Uganda. A pragmatic thinker who believed economic cooperation was Africa's road to power and dignity. And third, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya. The elder statesman who balanced capitalism with Pan-African ambition. These 3 leaders met in 1963, just after independence, and signed the Kampala Agreement, laying the first stone of the East African community. Then, on June 6, 1967, in sacred Arusha, the Treaty for East African Cooperation was signed. The EAC was officially born. And it wasn't just an idea, it was real. One currency. One airline, East African Airways, flying from Nairobi to London. One postal system. Shared universities and research centers like the East African Agricultural Research Institute. The dream was bold, a federation, almost a single country. The East African shilling was supposed to replace the Kenyan, Ugandan, and Tanzanian shillings. But it was too good to last. By the 1970s, the EAC was falling apart. Why? Power imbalances. Kenya's economy grew fast, attracting jobs and investment. Tanzania, under Julius Nyerere, socialism nationalized industries. Uganda slid into chaos, first under Milton Obote. Then the reign of Idi Amin. Amin expelled Asians in 1972, devastating Uganda's economy and breaking business ties across the region. He accused Kenya of being imperialist. Julius Nyerere called him a lunatic. Trade collapsed. Ports backed up with containers. The East African Railways and Harbours Corporation fell into debt and corruption. East African Airways grounded planes. In 1977, after 10 years of operation, the East African Community was dissolved. The treaty was terminated. The dream was dead. A generation had watched the rise and fall of Africa's most ambitious regional project, not to war, but to ego, distrust, and economic fear.
Well, we used to sell about 10% of our total manufactured products to Tanzania. As it is now, with the border closed, we are not selling very much. We're still selling some. But we have found other markets. So the adjustment has been a little bit painful, but we've made it.
For 22 long years, the EAC was gone. But the idea never died. During the dark days of war in Rwanda, civil unrest in Burundi, and droughts across the region, trade still flowed, in secret. Families crossed borders. Traders used back roads. Informal economies kept the region alive. By the 1990s, a new generation of leaders emerged. Yoweri Museveni in Uganda. Benjamin Mkapa in Tanzania. Daniel Arap Moi in Kenya. They looked back, not at the collapse, but at the potential. They knew the world was globalizing. Asia was rising. Europe had the EU. Why not Africa? In 1996, the Tripartite Commission began negotiations. In 1999, they signed a new treaty, again, in Arusha. On July 7, 2000, the East African Community was officially reborn. Not as a revival, but as a new dream. The new EAC didn't just return. It expanded. On July 5, 2007, Rwanda and Burundi, nations with no British colonial history, joined. They were francophone, war-scarred, but committed to growth and peace. Rwanda even chose English as an official language. A sacrifice for unity. Then, on July 15, 2016, South Sudan, the youngest country on Earth, became the 6th member, bringing the total to over 180 million people. In March 2022, Somalia began the process. A nation battling Al-Shabaab, yet choosing integration over isolation. And in 2022, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Africa's giant with 90 million people, became the 8th member, adding Congo Basin forests, mineral wealth, and Congo River trade to the EAC. This wasn't just expansion. It was transformation. The EAC was no longer a colonial project, it was an African project. Fun fact. Combined, the EAC now has over 311 million people, larger than the US population, and $1.1 trillion GDP. It's Africa's most promising economic bloc. How do 8 nations govern one regional body? It's complex, but brilliant. Here are the key institutions. 1. The summit, heads of state meet annually. They are final decision makers. 2. The Council of Ministers meets monthly. It turns ideas into policy. 3. The East African Legislative Assembly, EALA, like a regional parliament. has 62 members elected from member states. It is based in Arusha, Tanzania. 4. The East African Court of Justice, it resolves disputes. Hence upholds the treaty. 5. The Secretariat, the working office. It oversees projects, budgets, integration. EAC is building in stages. 1. Customs union done. No tariffs on goods from member states. 2. Common market done. People, services, capital move freely. 3. Monetary union coming. 1 EAC currency by 2030 planned. Number 4. Political federation. This is the ultimate goal. A United States of East Africa. Imagine, one passport. One president. One flag. It sounds like sci-fi, but for millions of young East Africans, it's destiny. But the road isn't straight. First, economic imbalances. Kenya produces 40% of the EAC's GDP. Rwanda is growing fast, but is it fair? Can Uganda and Burundi compete? Second, political differences. Kenya and Uganda have somewhat open societies. Rwanda is very stable but tight on dissent. Tanzania under Magufuli cracked down on opposition, then changed under Samia Suluhu. South Sudan still fragile. Can such states share power? Third, border bottlenecks. Despite free movement, bribes, corruption, and delays still plague border posts. Traders pay more in tea and fees than in taxes. Fourth, nationalism versus regionalism. Many Kenyans fear becoming the donor, always paying more. Some Ugandans say, and we're being colonized by Nairobi. Tanzanians worry about cultural erosion. And finally, security. Somalia fighting Al-Shabaab. DRC's endless conflicts. South Sudan's divisions. Can the EAC handle peace and integration at once? Yes, the EAC has launched the East African Standby Force, trained for peace operations. But the tensions remain. So, what's next? The EAC is building a single digital market, linking payment systems like M-Pesa and Airtel Money across borders. A regional payment system is already live. High-speed railways are coming, standard gauge railway from Mombasa into Uganda, then South Sudan. Soon, a central corridor will link Dar es Salaam to Burundi and DRC. The East African visa allows 90-day stays in all members. And a common identity card is being tested. But the real test? The monetary union. A new central bank. One currency. Will it happen by 2030? Experts say yes, but only if politics allow it. And one day, perhaps in 2040, the East African Federation may be real. A constitution. A president. A flag flying from Mombasa to Kinshasa. But unity isn't built in documents. It's built in schools, in markets, in football stadiums where fans cheer for EAC, not just Kenya or Uganda. Finally, the East African community is more than treaties and bureaucrats. It's a people's project. A hope passed from President Julius Nyerere generation to the youth of today. Will it succeed? Not because it's easy, but because the alternative, division, weakness, underdevelopment, is harder. The dream lives. In every bus from Kampala to Kigali. In every app startup connecting Mombasa to Goma. In every young person who says, I am East African. So ask yourself, do you believe in this union? If yes, share this video. Subscribe. Talk about it. Because the future won't just be written in Arusha. It'll be built by people like you. This is your history. Your region. Your destiny. Thank you for watching. And Kwa heri, see you in the next video.